everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Karen Buechs. I'm the host for the evening. I have a super guest here tonight. I always love having him on the show. I believe this is the second time he's on. He's a busy guy. Please welcome Plymouth Town Manager, Derek Brandisi.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for having me back. It's been a while.
Yes, well, I don't want to wear you out because I know how busy you are. And I do follow you. We had a wonderful town meeting. What do you think?
I think it was overall extremely successful.
Yeah.
There were a lot of great articles that passed that are going to do a lot of great and positive projects that'll do a lot of great good for the town. The budget, as you know, was a big discussion point. So because of the dialogue, as you know, we had to move into a second night, into that Monday night. So, but overall, the moderator did a great job facilitating what I would say is a very complicated town meeting. So it went well.
Yep, it's a delicate dance. I do think, though, that the opening is too long. I mean, that's just me. I've always said it. I've even said it to the moderator. I mean, please cut it down to half an hour.
Right.
I know he has to say a few things, but an hour and 5 is too long. But
yeah, I mean, it is 60 minutes. Other town meetings I've gone to are usually 30 minutes of like introduction. So the Plymouth town meeting, I mean, the one I went to in 2022 lasted 11 and a half hours long. That was the one that went to like 7 p.m. So
too long.
If there's some ways that we could cut it down a little bit, especially in the intro, that would help us all.
Derek, I remember I was a town meeting member, I don't know, 18, 19 years ago. By the way, I'm running again in Precinct 7, so I'll be on the ballot.
Good luck.
Thank you. But I remember it went 3 nights.
Really? Yeah?
And we looked forward to it. It was what we did. It was our hobby. It was actually thought of as a hobby back then. Now it is tremendous work.
A lot of work as a job, as a town meeting member, and it's costly. I think it's about $15,000 it costs our taxpayers to run a one-day town meeting. But then when we have to operate a second night, it's another $15,000 because of...
No matter how long you stay there?
Because all the technology we use nowadays with OTI, PAC TV coming. So there's a lot of technology that's involved in today's town meeting setup that there's a significant cost associated with it.
And the telzons that are used.
Right.
Yeah. I sat on that committee with the town moderator. There were 4 of us with IT from the school. And to bring it to town meeting. And, when you first start out, they don't like it.
Right.
I think,
was that around 2016?
Yeah.
I think I was the assistant town manager when...
2015, 16.
Okay. Yeah.
And, they railed. But, and the technology was green. And they, no matter how many times you told them how to do it,
right.
It took a while for them to get used, but now they love it.
Right, yep.
It's all getting used to it.
Well, look, you just think about the last 7 or 8 years. So prior to 2015, there was no real technology. It was it was on television, right? So PAC TV would cover it. And then we moved to the clickers so that you can do electronic voting. And then because of COVID, you were able to vote from home, right? And now we've actually advanced even more where you can do clickers in person, you can vote from home, doing hybrid town meetings. The town was the first hybrid town meeting in all of Massachusetts last year. So in 8 years, we made significant technology advances in town meeting.
And I know the moderator said at town meeting, to do Zoom as a town meeting member, you have to have a good reason. You have to be ill or out of state or something like that. It's just not, he would rather have you go.
Right.
But that option is there. And we're the first town that did it.
Right. It's available now, and folks appreciate it. For whatever reason you can't be physically present, those can still participate remotely.
Guess what? We have a phone call.
Okay.
Hello, you're on Talk of the Town.
Yeah, my name is Matthew E. O'Neill. I'm an Amazon.com author. My book, Everpedia Boxing Archives, is in the New Hampshire State Library and Haskell Free Library. The reason for I have a couple of fast questions. There was talk a few years ago that Plymouth, Massachusetts might be split up into separate towns, that West Plymouth might become a separate town.
I've heard of it.
Are you aware of this, or is this a possibility that might happen in the future?
You can answer that.
It's certainly not a discussion today. I don't see any value in separating the town into other political subdivisions and other towns. In fact, it would cost more money when you think about it. You know, if West Plymouth were to secede from the union, think about it, they would need another town manager, another fire chief, another police chief. So there are economies of scale, another school district. So there are economies of scale by the town staying together, although it's complicated because of its geographic size. We are more efficient by staying together.
Okay. Yes. In my book, Everpedia Boxing Archives, I detail my USA boxing sanction matches that occurred in the U.S. Air Force. The results I'll produce Plymouth, Massachusetts' first Division I college baseball scholarships with the help of Dwayne Follett. And my biological son, Dan Marshall, was born shortly thereafter, after I competed. I have a quick question about Plymouth sports. They have a pretty good sports program in the town. They historically have had a great program. From a personal issue, do you think soccer should be a varsity sport, or do you think maybe they should make it a sport up against baseball in the spring? I know people like the sport of soccer, but to be truthful, it's not the same sport as football. So, I mean, do you think it deserves to be a varsity sport? And if it still remains a varsity sport, could they think about putting it up against baseball instead of football?
Well, I'd say soccer, internationally known as football, is the most popular sport in the world. So certainly it's worthy of being in a varsity sport. Plymouth North and Plymouth South have great programs, both of them. They compete statewide. And I don't know. I mean, you know, what season does it belong in? I think that's up to the professionals to decide.
Thank you for the call.
Okay, well, thanks. All right.
Thanks. That was interesting.
Yeah, that's a
Different.
couple good questions.
Yeah. So back to town meeting. I am so glad the accessory housing passed. The first time it came, it was defeated. And the second time now, this town meeting, it passed. Which means, explain.
So the accessory dwelling units, this is going to be a new opportunity for homeowners in town that they can convert a space, could be a space above their garage, it could be a space in their basement, or it could be an accessory dwelling on their property that would allow them to rent out this space as an additional unit. The governor, as you know, Karen, she has a goal, I want to say it's to increase the number of housing units by about 50,000 statewide.
Yeah.
We have a housing shortage in Massachusetts. This accessory dwelling unit bylaw is actually becoming more and more common across the state. More and more cities and towns are passing this type of bylaw. So it's going to help. It's going to help our residents in many different ways. So those folks that want to take care of a child who may have a disability, it gives them the opportunity to live more independent in one of these types of units. Those families that want to, say, take care of a parent who is a senior but still wants to live in town and wants to sell their home, you know, they can move into one of these units on their child's property. So I think it's going to allow folks to age in place and to stay local. I think it's a great opportunity.
I thought it was great the first time around, and I was so happy it passed. Which reminds me, you had a zoning bylaw change, not this town meeting, previously, for dilapidated buildings. What happened with that?
So we proposed a bylaw, it was what we called a nuisance bylaw. And it was a bylaw that would have given the town officials more authority to pursue properties that were dilapidated, that were not maintained, that say the property owner was living somewhere else, so they weren't owner occupied. These properties in many communities are a blight in neighborhoods. They bring down the value of neighborhoods. So we know that there are properties in town that resemble what we were trying to pursue. You have Burt's, right, is a piece of property. It's a great example of, we had this nuisance bylaw, we could go after the property owner to bring that property back to standards.
May I say something about Burt's?
Sure.
I go by maybe 2 times a week. Tonight when I went by, there's huge graffiti that's suddenly on there. Not only is it a blight to look at, now we have this huge graffiti all over it.
Right. And this bylaw would have given us the authority to send a notice to the property owner to say, you need to bring this building back to the current building code standards, so that it's, and clean it up so it's no longer a blight in the neighborhood. And if they chose not to, then it would then give us the ability, through the court system, we just can't do this arbitrarily, through the court system, we could then petition the courts to tear the building down at the cost of the owner. So this was defeated at town meeting. There were many town meeting members that thought that this was giving too much authority to town officials, and so for those reasons they defeated it. But here we are, almost a year later. We're still looking at Burt's. We're still looking at the full sale over on Taylor Ave. We're still looking at the hole in the ground on Court Street. And this, if we had this bylaw, we could have been pursuing them through court action to bring those properties back to their proper standards.
Is it going to come back?
I think we'd like it to come back. I think what we need to do on my end is we got to work a little bit closer with COPC, and hopefully they can help us convince their precincts that this is a worthy endeavor. Before all that, I need to work closely with the select board to fine-tune this bylaw, get their input, get their support, and then I think once we do that, then we'll consider it for a future town meeting again.
I hope so, because it is worthy. Now let's talk about Red Brook. For me, it was a no-brainer. I loved it from the beginning. I understood it from the beginning. I was happier that they changed the location, but I got it right away.
Right.
And I had Red Brook on the show, and it was quite informative. And slowly, surely, people came around. What did you think?
So I was a supporter of it, although I didn't have a vote in any of this, whether through the warrant
You should be
action.
a town meeting member.
Maybe someday I'll pull papers and I'll join you in the auditorium on the other side of the table, Karen. But it's a good idea. So I, although I didn't have a vote, I had a chance to sit down with Dan Gorzaga and Jim Kane from 80 Makepeace just to hear about their project. And a couple of things that I really appreciate about their project, which is very different than any other project, any other affordable project that I've ever experienced. So
Really affordable.
it was very affordable, right? So most affordable projects, they hover around the 80% AMI. So that's the area median income, which is it really that affordable when it's still that high? Really not. But this project that Red Brook proposed lowered the AMI for many of the units down to 30%. So you had some at 80%, some at 60%, some at 30%. And then they also increased the number of units from like 52 units to 62 units, right? So
Right.
they went up by about 20%. But the one I really appreciated the most about their idea was that this 70% of these 62 units was going to be set aside for Plymouth residents.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about taking care of our residents, this was a project that is like, listen, we're going to help the people that already live in this town, that already invest in this town. We don't want to leave this. We don't want them to leave. So we're specifically going to build this structure for our residents. So I like that. And then this was 62 and older. So
Yeah.
again, a structure that is going to focus on individuals that may not need a big home anymore.
No, and the apartments were absolutely beautiful. Beautiful, lots of sunlight, things for them to do. I just loved it.
And it's in the Red Brick Center,
Yeah.
right? So I know there were conversations about transportation access or lack of transportation, but you know, many of the folks that live in that town center, there's a YMCA down there, there's a restaurant down there, there's a bakery, coffee shop, there's going to be a grocery store down there at some point.
All
They'll
wonderful.
have a lot of the amenities that they need on a
Yeah.
regular basis. So it's a great project. I'm happy to see that it passed. I know there was debate about the cost of the project, but I think overall, when you break down the cost per unit, I think it was about $65,000 per unit
Compared to,
compared to the Housing Authority project that is
Oy.
3 units at over $900,000. So
Yeah.
this was a bargain. This Red Brook project was a bargain.
yeah, I appreciated it very much. Now, I got a question today, and I'm going to read it as the person said it, and this was Article 16B.
Okay.
I believe, you can tell me if I'm wrong. A developer is building 40 units down there. No, it's more than 40 units, but
So
he,
30, I think the 16B is a total, that project is about 34 units total.
34 total?
Total, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was
With
told
34
40.
units, 34 condo units, and then 10 additional
Okay, so 44.
affordables
Okay.
are on top of that.
This person wanted to know if we would be accredited for affordable housing with that project,
Yes.
and how many units?
So as I understand that project, that's on Court Street.
Yeah.
There are 34 condos that are being built.
Okay,
And then the developer, Meg Ryko, was already building 4 affordable units.
okay,
Went to town meeting and asked town meeting to support a build out of additional 6 affordable units.
and then they came to the CPC for that.
Right, they came to CPC, asked CPC first, and then went to town meeting. So that project in its entirety has 10 true affordable units, and then I believe it's another 34 condos that are set aside in the back. But because the 10 affordables exceed 25% of the total project, all of the units, the other 34 condos, can count towards the town's subsidized housing inventory. So our 10% goal that we're trying to meet. So there'll be 10 units that will be truly affordable, but all of the entire project, 100% of every one of those units will count towards our inventory.
That's wonderful to hear. The person will be very happy to hear that, because they were confused.
Yeah, and it was a little confusing because typically when you talk about counting affordable units towards our housing inventory, it's usually apartments. That's usually what you say,
Yeah.
like, okay, if you build 25% of this development are affordables, all of the apartments will count. But this was unique because these were condos that we were putting towards our inventory. And that was because of the calculation of them being more
The
than
percentage.
right, more than 30%.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's,
I didn't either. It was actually, that was first time I had seen that
Wow.
type of formula.
That's good to know. I mean, I sit on the CPC. I wasn't aware. Now, I saw, because I watch the selectmen's meetings, and when it's especially boring, I mute it. But I come back, especially for the town manager's report, and I read the agenda ahead of time, and I know what's coming up. But I loved the police chief's report that he did about loitering. I thought he put a lot of time and effort into that, and I understood it. Now, there are neighborhoods and citizens alike that were, you know, the parking lots were an issue.
Right.
As they walked by. Talk to that.
Sure. I can speak directly to this one because this bylaw was born out of dozens of complaints that I personally received from residents. And so, let me pause for a second because the loitering bylaw became a little controversial, much like the nuisance bylaw. became controversial. And what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the times when we draft these bylaws, they are to solve problems. So we drafted a nuisance bylaw to solve blighted properties, right?
Yep.
We drafted a loitering bylaw to solve problems. And the problem that we were faced with last summer, as you pointed out, Karen, were in a lot of the publicly owned parking lots, there were, young,
Gathering places.
young kids hanging out, spinning tires, playing the music really loud, becoming a nuisance in the neighborhood. And those are quality of life issues. Nuisance properties, quality of life issues. So, the chief brought forward this loitering bylaw in large part because he had said to me, there's nothing we can do unless we witness them violating some law, like say, drinking with an open container. There's nothing we can do. It's legal to hang out in a parking lot. So the loitering bylaw gets at the issue that the police department comes on the scene, they get a complaint that there's a nuisance in the neighborhood. They can then,
do something.
talk to these people and say, listen, you can't hang out here, you have to move on. And I think the loitering bylaw begins at 9 p.m. to like 7 a.m. the next day.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And one of those gathering places was a garage.
Right. The garage from town, right across from Town Hall.
Yeah, and squealing tires and
Yep.
whatnot. But we have another phone call. Hello, you're on Talk of the Town.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Derek. It's been a long time.
Hey, Mr. Leiden, how are you?
Good, thank you, Derek. I have to commend you. Your job is not easy, but I know what made it harder was when you had a bunch of key people who have left, and you have done a fantastic job replacing them.
Mm-hmm.
The staff you have is just, they're fantastic, and I've had the opportunity to deal with a lot of your staff, and I'll tell you, I couldn't ask for anyone better. And the things that we've accomplished, through the Business Service Board and with your help, because you've done a lot, and it's really been a pleasure, to deal with you guys and your staff. The other thing is, the people you brought on in the programs, you've moved Plymouth to the future, which is, we've been stagnated for a long time.
He said he was going to do that. Remember, Stevie, when he first came on?
But you've done, your resiliency program. I had a little presentation today of what's going to be going on. I went to Forges Field and I suffered through chaos Saturday afternoon when you have all these 5 and 6-year-olds playing, trying to play soccer together. It was, and that's our recreation department. They do a great job. And,
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it goes on and on. It's just, your staff is really great. And like I said, with your leadership, and through the VSB, we've accomplished a lot, and to help the town and to make things better for tourism, and which is the largest industry in the town. And you're like I said, you're moving the town forward into the future, and it's been stagnated for a long time. We haven't done anything, or we've done things the way we always did before, which is really not working now. Maybe back then, but not now. And you've really done a lot, and I just want to thank you very much for everything you do. So, and if you would like, if you could explain the resiliency program and what it is, I think it'd be great, because I was really impressed what that's going to be.
Yeah.
So, and with that, I'll let you go, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank
All
you.
right, bye now.
So, yes, I mean, Mr. Leiden, he, as you know, he's the chair of the VSB, and Steve and the committee as a whole, they often come to us and say, we know you guys have a lot of ideas, how can we help? How can we help move tourism along? And they have been supportive of 100% of our requests. So Steve, if you're still listening, we really appreciate all that you guys have done, because we can't do any of this work without our board and committees, right? So these are volunteer people. They're dedicating their own time because they love the community. We have hundreds of volunteer board and committee members. And so, although we get paid to do what we do. So we better do a good job, right? But none of you guys are getting paid for this. So I really appreciate working with our boards and committees. But a couple of things that Steve touched on, a couple of things that I am really proud of, and the select board have really kind of pushed me to try to be new and innovative, and as Steve pointed out, not do the status quo. So I love our Health and Human Services Department. Absolutely love it.
I do too.
With being led by Commissioner Michelle Brady, they just announced 5 grant awards we're going to give back to the community, over $250,000 from the opioid settlement funds, and that's being led by Health and Human Services. They're really moving things forward with engaging nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, the hospital, and they're trying to create and weave together all these organizations so that we can prop up our residents, right, and those that are most needy. So they're doing great work. And then, as Steve pointed out, our new Department of Energy and the Environment, that's being led by David Gould, who, as we all know, has done amazing work for 20 years, and the grants that he does. And so, he led the Department of Marine and Environmental Affairs for all those years. And so we modified their mission a little bit to focus on energy and the environment. And what Steve referenced earlier was this presentation that was presented this morning by Michael Cahill. He's our climate resiliency planner. This was a position that was created before I got here, so I was able to be the beneficiary of this.
I haven't met
wisdom.
him yet.
So he has been working on a program that is geared towards mitigating heat island effect. So heat island effect is a climate change problem, whereas if we were to do a GIS overlay of the town of Plymouth, what you would see is that heat would be emanating from certain areas of town. And when we do this, what we see is that the downtown area, because of all the asphalt, the parking decks, the concrete, the brick, the buildings, there's very little shade trees and natural plantings. And so because of that, we have tremendous amount of heat. That's the heat island effect. So he, in working with David Gould and others, are in the process of redesigning Court Street.
Wonderful.
So that it's going to focus on mitigating heat island. But what it's also going to do, it's going to focus on tearing up our concrete sidewalks and replacing it with permeable material. That could be brick or other type of material that's going to allow the water to run into the sidewalk and recharge our aquifer. It's going to include shade trees all along Court Street. It's going to allow for more pedestrian-friendly sidewalks that's going to create bump outs. So when you cross Court Street, you're not crossing a 20-foot span, you're crossing, like, say, a 10-foot span.
And that's traffic calming also.
That's exactly what it is. Thank you for bringing that up. It is traffic calming. So although this is focused on climate resiliency planning, it's going to have an aesthetic effect. It's going to have a transportation effect.
I love it.
The downtown business are really excited. Tiffany Park, our grant writer, has just submitted to a congressional earmark for $3 million for this project. So we do believe that there'll be some type of contribution the town is going to have to make, but we are hoping that at least 80% of this project will be funded by either the federal government or the state government. There's another grant.
I love this idea.
So it's something that I went to the Downtown Business Group 2 years ago. I talked about this at this morning's meeting, that I went to them and I said, how can we help you grow as a business? And I was thinking about infrastructure. So wider sidewalks, brick sidewalks, better lighting, tree plantings. And I think we just kind of struck it right where we're talking about infrastructure improvements downtown, but at the same time, we knew that we couldn't go to the taxpayer and ask them to do it. So being very creative, our Department of Energy and the Environment said, listen, we can achieve all of this, but with a environmental focus. And that's how we plan on getting this funded.
Oh, that is so exciting. I must have missed that selectmen's meeting.
So, great point. We let the cat out of the bag a little bit by Steve bringing this up today. Michael Cahill, our planner, is coming in front of the select board on May 21st.
Oh, I'll
He's going to
watch.
present the climate action plan, and he's going to talk about the conceptual idea of this heat island project.
Oh, I'm going to be thinking about this for a long time.
There's a lot, it's interesting because there's a lot of things that we're planning behind the scenes that we haven't talked about publicly just because it's in the infancy stages. But as these start to grow, that's when we bring them to the select board. So the chief just presented his analysis of his strategic plan for the police department.
Yes.
Climate action plan's coming forward. As you know, the master plan is working.
Yeah.
We're working behind the scenes right now on a plan to renovate and reconstruct Memorial Hall to bring it back to its former glory. These are things that we're not talking about publicly because they're all in the early stages of design. Ann Slusser, our rec director, I can't wait for her project. Just got funding at town meeting to master plan Forges Field, so that we stop building playing fields here and there and dog parks here and there. We're taking a step back and saying, let's look at all of the property and figure out where we want to be in the next 10 years.
That's wonderful. Well,
Excuse me.
I knew you a little bit when you were assistant town manager, and I liked you then. You were very quiet, but you listened, and I liked that. When you came on as town manager, you said from the very beginning, I want to go forward. I want to bring the town forward. We can condense, we can make things better. And I said, this is exciting. Now I hope I have a select board that's cooperative. That has to happen too. And they seem to be.
Yes.
And you have a wonderful police force and a fire department and DPW, and it all works together. It's called cooperation. And when you get a guy like Stevie as chair of the VSB and says, what else can I do?
That's right.
That's what you need on all boards and committees.
Karen, you hit the nail on the head. If we want this town to progress, and it doesn't matter how you define progress. It really doesn't, because we all define progress differently.
Yeah.
But the only way to do that is we all have to do it together, right? So I can have a lot of great ideas because of my experiences in different other cities and towns, but I can't do it without the support of the select board. And I can tell you right now that many of the select board members, past and present, have said to me that the reason why they wanted me to come here and the change was because they wanted to go in a different direction. So my philosophy aligned with their expectations. I wasn't going to come to a community to run in place. I just wasn't going to do it.
You're not the type.
Right. I just can't do it. If that was the case, I could have stayed in my last community and I could have coasted the last 5 years of my career. But I came here because I wanted to make change, and the select board are expecting change, right? So, we can bring ideas to them. They give us the direction, and we execute their policies.
Yes, and the chair of the selectmen, Dick Quintal, he's great for that. He does want, he said it a dozen times at least, he wants to progress. But does everybody know that you're a sergeant major?
So I'm a lieutenant colonel.
Oh, lieutenant colonel, you got a raise.
Yeah. So actually, it's funny you bring that up, and this is not scripted. So I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Air National Guard, and on May 5th, I am going to become a commander. So I will have 50 people 50 airmen report to me.
God.
We have a special mission. We have a domestic response force mission that if there was ever a domestic tragedy, our 50-person unit can be deployed in a medical capacity to respond. So I just got selected not even 3 weeks ago to take on the command role, so I'm looking forward to it. It'll be exciting.
And, I see that come out very gently, though. I see it come out as town manager because you have a way about you, and that is to first understand the situation completely get your soldiers in line, and implement. I see you doing that over and over again, and you know how to do it. First town manager I've ever seen in this town able to do that. And I'm sure a lot of other things go into that, but your mind works that way. Actually, your mind is like an engineer's mind.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I stay in the military because a lot of how I organize my thoughts come from even going to the base for 2 days a month, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're, a lot of the folks that I interact with at the base, they are full-time colonels and generals that do this on a regular basis. So when I'm engaging with them, I see that they have a different approach. The military has a very different approach. I try not to
Have that skill.
operationalize
Yeah.
town government like it's a military, because it's not.
No, I
But
don't.
the framework in which I organize my thoughts is very much taken from my experience in the military. So
Right.
I don't ever want to be called he acts like a general, because I don't.
No.
Like I think my approach is more collaborative, because you have to be collaborative whether you're dealing with staff or you're dealing with businesses or you're dealing with board and committee members. You have to be collaborative. But how you organize the operations can have a military focus.
Excellent. No, you're not militant whatsoever. You just, your thought process is deep, sound, and you thought it out. It might take a while, but it's there. The plan is there. The whiteboard has been marked up thoroughly, and you know what you're doing. And I appreciate it.
Well, I do, although I am a Worcester guy, born and raised, if I could have done this over in my life, I would have loved to raise my children in Plymouth. As you and I were talking prior, the residents that were born and raised in this town and raised their children in this town, I think some of them take this town for granted. It is an amazing community. You have 36 miles of coastline, you got 300 plus ponds, you can go hiking, you can go to the Cape, you can go to Boston. It's a great community. You know, I grew up in the city and it was very different. We didn't have all these amenities that the folks here have. So
And there are a lot of tools here for every age group. And I take advantage of some at Council of Aging. My taxes are done there, free.
right, that's right.
And I so appreciate that. Not that I have much, but I would have to do them, and they do them. I love that, and it's a wonderful facility.
It's a great facility.
And you're right, this town has a lot to offer, and you're bringing it to its full potential.
You know, and we need, you know, getting back to collaboration, you know, it just can't be town staff. So we have, as you know, Karen, you know, you pointed out our fire department, our police department, you know, being led by two great leaders over there, both Chief Flynn and Chief Foley. Lynn Barrett's been here an extremely long time and has somehow figured out to balance our books for almost 15
She knows
years now.
what she's doing.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And Lee Harmon, although he's trying to retire, we refuse to let him retire as our planning director. I mean, the town has great leaders, but they have great frontline staff that really care about this community, and it's not an easy job. It's not. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about, you know, like, can you imagine working in the treasurer collector's office every day when, you know, who likes to pay their tax bill, right? So.
But they're very nice in there. I go in. I have never run into anybody grouchy anywhere.
Right.
Even the assessor's office, the paying your taxes, health department.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everyone, puts on a smile face, but you're not. The interactions aren't always friendly, right? Oftentimes,
Oh,
because
yeah.
someone's upset about their tax bill or their water
Sure.
demand bill, and so there's a lot of conflict resolution. Or, you're the police officer on the front lines, and
Oh, I don't know how they do it.
they're always showing up on somebody's worst day, right? It's a very difficult job. Or the firefighter who's going to a 911 call because there's a
Yeah.
car accident or there's a fire. So, and the
They
list goes
see
on.
horror.
You're right. So and we always talk about fire and police, but we have a lot of other unsung heroes in town hall that are providing customer service back to our residents because that's what they expect.
That's your
so,
face of your
right. So it's
government.
not easy, right? And so I don't think that we talk enough about our employees because they all do great work, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, they like you, and you earned it. Now, I know you have goals, and we've talked about some, and the selectmen have goals. And I know sometimes they go off the rails. But they're pretty honest.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say something straight out. And I'm really sorry to lose Harry Helm. I know he marched to a different drummer, but he always asked the hard questions.
He did, you're right.
Dickie's the same way. And then, Dickie's manner is very kind.
Yep.
So it's a dance, and everybody has to know the steps.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, so I've worked in local government since 2000. I worked for a city council form of government for 15 years, and there were 11 elected officials, so 11 city councilors. I worked in Upton for 5 years. They had 3 selectmen, and in Plymouth we've had 5. And I've said this honestly that like this group of selectmen, I really enjoy working with, and because they're not. It's funny because a lot of them know each other for a long time, but they disagree on a regular basis, right? Because although like
True.
they can work together and collaborate, they all look at things differently. And if you look at Selectman Mahoney, what is he? Everybody knows what he loves. He loves to protect the environment, and he wants to secure water for the next 100 years, right?
Plus, he wants to put money away.
And he doesn't like money going into the general fund.
Right.
Exactly. As you pointed out, Chairman Quintal has been a board member for many, many years.
Eons.
So, he really he leads the board, and they often look to the other 4 members look to him for advice. Like, listen, you've been around here a long time, Dickie. Like, how do you want to pursue this? Because you've seen it all. So,
But he does it through
Charlie?
kindness.
Oh yeah, he's got the biggest heart.
Charlie's the same way.
And Charlie, he loves to talk about businesses. He's a big small business supporter. So, Kevin Canty, super intelligent as an attorney. He's great because when sometimes you think the board is starting to get a little disoriented,
He brings them
He
back.
brings them all back, right?
Yeah.
You see that on every Tuesday night. He brings
Yeah.
everybody back. He summarizes the conversation so people can consume the information. So honestly, God, I love working with this board. And although executive sessions are private, they're often entertaining. So I really appreciate working with them and hope we can stick together for years to come.
I know. And David Golden is going to make a fabulous selectman. He's running for selectman, and I know David. He's going to be great.
I agree.
He's his own man.
Mhm.
He deciphers also. He's also educated, and I believe he's getting his doctorate.
He is. Last time I talked to David, he was I think he was in the process of finishing his thesis.
Yes.
So you're right. He will have his PhD probably in short order. Very intelligent man. As you know, he's the chairman of the Charter Committee. Served on the Board of Health. Continues to serve on the Board of Health. And he was interesting because he was kind of the contrarian, right, on the Board of Health for a while, challenging the public health status quo, that it doesn't have to be that way. And I can tell you something, I worked in public health for 15 years in the city of Worcester, and I liked David's approach because a lot of other boards of health, they were just falling in line with state officials were saying, and they weren't challenging that. They were just saying, they were just kind of being sheep. And I have to say, when I served in the Public Health Council, I was challenging the Public Health Council and the Commissioner of Public Health on some of their pandemic policies, their pandemic policies.
Oh, thank you.
And because I didn't agree with them. So I see that in David. He was doing the same thing with the Board of Health, saying, we don't have to do it this way.
Yeah.
We are different. Plymouth is different than Quincy. It's different than Boston. And so our policies have to be different.
You brought up a sore subject. I don't like it when people say, well, what does this town do? I know sometimes we have to ask that or investigate it just to see what the formula is. But people often compare, and I'm not the type that likes to do that.
Yeah, I'm right. Wouldn't we rather be a leader?
Yeah.
Why do we have to see what Carver is doing or what Bourne is doing? I want them to call us and say, what are you guys doing?
What are you doing?
Right.
And they have.
Right. And that's how we should. That's how we,
Yeah.
we're the biggest town in Massachusetts. We should be considered a leader. And so, that's where I think some of the things that we're doing now, especially like that climate resiliency project I was talking to you about.
I can't wait.
I'm hoping that we have folks from not only Massachusetts, but all around New England come to Plymouth
To
and say, wow,
see.
how did you guys do this?
That should make the national news. How far would it go from?
So we're thinking from Samoset all the way down to Water Street.
Okay.
That stretch of Court to Main Street Extension.
Excellent.
It'll be driven based upon how much money, if the federal government comes in with $3 million and we can get another $2 million from the state, we could probably do that entire stretch.
Wow.
But if we only get half of that, we would have to just phase it in over time. But it would be a great project. And, we think about not only the summer tourism, but, the VSB just supported the tree lighting event. So we're going to
that
purchase
was
a
beautiful.
40-foot artificial tree that is going to be the centerpiece of our tree lighting event. So, this project is going to have an effect year-round on all of our different events that we do.
Oh, I didn't want the lights to go out on the tree.
Didn't they look amazing this year? That was all funded by
Amazing.
VSB.
I know, just beautiful. Which reminds me, the Spire Center came out so good.
It's a gem.
Oh,
It came out amazing.
between Town Hall and the Spire, the museum is right there down the street. Now, if you want to do Memorial Hall, you got, boom,
Yeah,
the whole strip.
right. And then the sidewalks and the trees. I'm thinking the next 5 years, Court Street is going to be totally transformed. Already I think we talk about revitalizing downtown. It's already vibrant downtown. We don't have to revitalize it, but we can make improvements. And so we got to figure out where we want to make those improvements.
You might not believe this, but I think it was maybe 19, 20 years ago. I went to the chair of the planning board and I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could brick all of downtown, the sidewalks, maybe even the street, who knows, do different lighting, whatever, and, it was a dream. And here it is.
But, it's funny because those ideas, I think, I hear over and over have come full circle. You talked about, bricks 20 years ago in downtown.
Made sense.
And I think we're getting there. But a story that was just shared with me just this past week was about, have you seen the new stairs down to Brewster Gardens from Main Street Extension?
Yes, beautiful.
So that's an interesting story, because I remember when I was the assistant town manager, I was standing in that location with Ted Bubbins, who was the parks director at the time, and we were trying to negotiate with the owner of the restaurant there in the corner. I'm drawing a blank on it. Because the only way to get to Brewster Gardens, you had to go into private property down, and they were in disrepair. And so we would try to negotiate repair on those stairs. And, Teddy and I just basically said, you know something, forget about this. Let's build our own stairs. And then I left. I left greener pastures to go to Upton. And I came back. Now I come back 6 years later. In those stairs, although Teddy has since retired, and now Nick Fiella took an idea from what I thought was 2017 time period and brought it to fruition. But what I learned was that the Parks Commissioner back in 2005 time period, I'm drawing a blank on his name,
Wow.
you would know, this was a concept they talked about almost 20 years ago, getting stairs on Main Street Extension down to Brewster Gardens. So I thought it was only an 8-year-old idea. It actually was like a 20-year-old idea.
No, I had heard about it. I knew they always wanted to fix it, and at the time they were also talking about the fish run,
Right.
That thing, because people were molesting the fish going by.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But to say David Gould has done a fabulous job is
He
an
has.
understatement.
He is definitely a gem. Just his ability to just get grants, because a lot of the work that he moves forward is grant driven.
Yeah.
And his projects are $3, $4, $5 million projects. They're not $200,000 projects. So, and he takes his time. He cobbles together the money over time, and he's able to make it happen. So, just get some money this past town meeting. They're going to dredge Jenny Pond. He's got the
can't
bypass
wait.
project that's going to take place, and then eventually they're going to make all their way that whole walkway from the grist mill all the way down to Brewster Gardens, all going to get
Wonderful.
renovated, and it's going to remove all of, how wet it is over there, how
Yeah.
there's a lot of,
We go there often. My son loves it there.
so that's all going to be repaired as well too. So again, that's another amazing project. You think about the projects just downtown, Stevens Field, now the Jenny Grist Mill project on Brewster Gardens, over to the Court Street project we just talked about. There's a lot of things. Spire is a gem, is a great testament to why the CPA, Community Preservation Act, is so important to this town, because of projects like the Spire.
Like that. Yes. That came out beautiful. I'm just so proud of it. Symes House, where are we?
Well, so it's still been vacant for the past year plus. You sat on the committee when we put the Symes House out to bid. We thought we were going to get some nonprofit organizations that would have bid on it, that would love to manage and maintain the building. $3.8 million was spent, so we got to put that money towards good use. Where we are now is, I think we're getting very close to reissue a bid. I know that there has been interest from some local nonprofits that think that they could make something out of that property. So I'm hoping in the next 4 weeks we'll put that out to bid and we'll see
Okay.
who responds.
That sounds great. A tax question. Do you know if the school department's coming back? Administration is coming back in the fall to ask for more monies? And are our taxes going up 6.9%?
So based upon the budget that was passed last week at town meeting, the taxes will go up 6.9%.
I'm going to talk to Betty tonight.
So let's talk about the 6.9%.
Yeah.
So if you look at tax increases over the last decade, 6.9% certainly is high. I am not trying to think that it's anything other than that. However, we had in the last 10 years, we had 1 year 6.5%. We had another year, I think it was 6.2%. Most of the tax increases over the period of time is around 5.5%.
We've gone over the 2.5 a number of times, haven't we?
We have, because of the excess capacity, which is
Yeah.
what triggered this year the 6.9%. So,
But it's not the fault of Plymouth. It's a trickle down. What's happening is trickle down. Federally, state-wise, and it hits the towns.
yeah, well, so let's talk about that. So it's a great point, Karen. So there's a lot of things that has driven the taxes to go up by 6.9%. So there's a lot of, it's multifactorial. One of those, and you just touched on it, is state aid. So our net state aid this year in the governor's budget, no, they haven't passed the budget yet, so there's still a lot of work to get done. But the governor's budget that went to the House had a net state aid of $180,000. If we look at how much state aid we get today compared to how much we received in 2002, we're actually getting less state aid today than 22 years ago.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? And with inflation, that's even less.
It's pathetic.
Right? So we can't count on, as you pointed out, for federal assistance. So that's at zero, other than a couple federal earmarks here and there. But we will always look to the state aid to help us and help subsidize our operations, and that's going down. So
They're in trouble.
the bills have to get paid. And I'm not on Facebook, although I found myself on Facebook last weekend when I heard people talking about the 6.9%. And what people weren't complaining about 6.9%, but what they were also saying is that our roads are in disrepair, our buildings in disrepair. And so what part of
You
the
can't have both.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but what people didn't realize, this 6.9% includes. It includes $500,000 going to our capital improvement stabilization fund for building repair. It includes $1.5 million going towards roads.
Yeah.
So that's a $2 million increase of taxes that's going back to the taxpayer for what they're complaining about. So you're right. You can't complain about the roads and complain about your taxes going up, because there aren't grants for roads.
No.
I mean, we do get some Chapter 90 funds for roads. We did get an additional $800,000 infusion this year through the millionaire's tax for roads. So on the state side, it's a little north of $2 million we got for roads, but we also infused an additional $1.5 million this year with using taxes.
And we have plenty of roads.
Oh, we have, yeah. If we just use Chapter 90 funds alone, we'll never catch up to the number of road miles that need to be repaired. We have the 4th largest road network in Massachusetts.
I know.
We're a town. We're only behind Boston, Worcester, and Springfield, and then we're number 4.
I know. Maybe
So-
we should change town meeting, but don't answer that.
That's not my decision.
Yeah.
But until the change of government does take place, we need our 162 town meeting members to be engaged. You can't be engaged just twice a year. You can't be engaged the first Saturday of April and the third.
You've lost, not you, but we have lost opportunity because we only meet twice a year.
That's right.
And we need a commercial base in this town. We need economic development to mitigate what our homeowners are paying. You know, and I'm not saying businesses, Dickie pays taxes through the nose.
Right.
But, oh my God, we're over.
Wow, it was that quick. We
That
could talk
was-
for another hour.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. I'll be back May 1st with Dee Wallace Spencer. She's running for state rep. See you then.